From the amazing visual quality of Zack Snyder's Justice League to complex characters like Batman and Peacemaker, DC has been beating Marvel at their own game for years. Just this fact for one, the DCEU is guilty pleasure galore. Imagine the MCU as a massive factory, churning out superhero movies like a well-oiled assembly line. The consistent output of Marvel films, one after another, reinforces this comparison. Sure, there have been some weak entries like Iron Fist or Thor: The Dark World, but even at their worst, they're just mediocre. It's like the MCU is incapable of producing the kind of memorable disasters that used to plague the superhero genre. But then there's the DCEU. Oh, the glorious mess that it is. From Black Adam to Suicide Squad and Wonder Woman 1984, these movies are like baffling guilty pleasures. They're so bad, they're good. And who can forget the pièce de résistance, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice? It's the special kind of bad that sparks heated debates among fans and critics alike. Unlike the MCU's occasional missteps, the DCEU's flops are a treasure trove for film enthusiasts to analyze and deconstruct. In the MCU, you'll find a well-oiled machine that keeps churning out blockbuster hits. But in the DCEU, it's like a wild roller coaster ride, with unexpected twists and turns, loops and dips, and you never know what's coming next. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion. You just can't look away. From awkward dialogues to plot holes big enough to fly a Batwing through, the DCEU's blunders are so entertainingly bad, they're unforgettable. But don't worry, DC fans, it's not all bad. Your entertainment universe is a lot more consistent than Marvel's. The MCU is a gift that keeps on giving, and giving, and giving. Even the most devoted fans can feel the strain of keeping track of every twist and turn in the ever-growing MCU universe. The MCU itself has recognized the need to trim down its overflowing plate and focus on quality over quantity in Phase 5. It's like a superhero fitness regimen, shedding some of the excess weight to make sure each new installment packs a powerful punch. After all, it's not just about the number of movies and TV shows, but also about the memorable experiences they provide. On the other hand, the DCEU seems to have stumbled upon a stroke of luck, with a more modest lineup of movies and TV shows. It's like a breath of fresh air for those who find the MCU's marathon-like pace overwhelming. The DCEU's leaner approach makes it easier for newcomers and veterans alike to jump in and enjoy the ride without feeling like they need a PhD in superhero studies to keep up. And the best part? The DCEU's upcoming expansion won't be bogged down by the heavy baggage of continuity that sometimes dragged down Marvel's Phase 4. It's like a fresh start, a clean slate, a chance for the DCEU to spread its wings and soar to new heights, without being weighed down by complicated interconnections. Plus, DC films are a lot more visually appealing. In the vastness of the MCU, there's no denying that there's a certain visual formula at play. It's like wearing the same outfit to every superhero party. It's reliable, but it can start to feel a bit stale. Now, let's shift our attention to the DCEU, where things are a bit different. One of the perks of the DCEU is that its movies have their own unique visual identities that set them apart. It's like a diverse fashion show, one where each superhero gets to strut their stuff in their own style. Man of Steel, for instance, took a bold and brutalist approach to Superman's aesthetics, making it one of the most visually striking reinterpretations of the character yet. And who can forget the underwater extravaganza of Aquaman, which felt like a colorful cartoon come to life, with its vibrant visuals and stunning underwater realms. Of course, great visuals alone aren't enough to guarantee a good DCEU movie. It takes a compelling story, well-developed characters, and tight pacing to make a superhero film truly soar. But one thing's for sure, the DCEU offers a refreshing variety in its visual presentation, giving each movie its own distinct flavor. It's like a visual feast for the eyes, with each movie offering something new and unexpected. The films also have a much stronger sense of direction. Even talented directors like Ryan Coogler, Sam Raimi, and Chloe Zhao, who brought their unique visions to the MCU, had to work within the preset confines of the universe. Sure, their movies were visually stunning and narratively captivating, but they still had to color within the lines of the MCU's established formula. And while James Gunn and Taika Waititi brought their off-color, irreverent flair to Guardians of the Galaxy and Thor Ragnarok, respectively, their movies were considered outliers rather than the norm. Now let's take a peek at the other side of the superhero universe. Here, it's a different story. The DCEU took a more filmmaker-driven approach, allowing directors to leave their unique fingerprints on their movies. Sure, there were still studio guidelines to adhere to, but they generally gave its directors more creative freedom to make their mark. Take, for example, Zack Snyder's unmistakable imprint on Superman's DCEU movies. Love him or hate him, there's no denying that Snyder's distinct style and vision were front and center in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And when David F. Sandberg, known for his horror roots, stepped into the director's chair for Shazam, his fingerprints were all over the film, with a perfect blend of scares and humor that made it stand out in the superhero genre. Then there's also the fact that DC villains are just better written than Marvel ones. Oh, the age-old conundrum of superhero villains. The MCU's Achilles heel, some might say. Phase 4 rolled around with the promise of rectifying this weakness, but alas, it seems the villainous characters still couldn't quite catch a break. Take WandaVision and Loki, for instance. These shows went to great lengths to explain that their seemingly villainous protagonists were just misunderstood antiheroes. Talk about bending over backward to make excuses. Meanwhile, over in the DCEU, they fully embraced the dark side. One show that stood out in particular was Peacemaker, the villainous miniseries that WandaVision and Loki could only dream of being. Not only was Peacemaker a refreshing standalone show, it also fearlessly confronted the darkness within its titular villain, rather than shying away from it. Which is also why no Marvel film comes even close to being as good as Joker or The Batman. While they may not officially be part of the DCEU canon, they owe their very existence to the franchise. In fact, they were born out of the shared universe's failure to fully embrace creative risks. You see, the DCEU's struggle with finding a consistent tone and direction paved the way for unique and daring projects, like Joker and the horror-infused The Batman, to break free from the constraints of the canon. These films were given the creative freedom to be bold and distinctive, thanks to their detachment from the larger franchise. These films, free from the shackles of the DCEU's canon, have been able to explore uncharted territories, unfettered by the pressure to adhere to a strict formula or fit into a larger shared universe. This creative freedom has allowed filmmakers to take risks, experiment with different styles and tones, and create movies that are true to their unique visions. On the other hand, the MCU's massive success has its drawbacks. While it has been a juggernaut at the box office, the formulaic nature of its entries can sometimes feel limiting. The need to maintain a cohesive universe with interconnected storylines and characters means that the MCU movies have to adhere to a certain template, with less room for creative risks or deviations from the established formula. But hey, that's all the ways the DCEU manages to beat Marvel at their own game.